Hey guys, this is Dan with Gears and Gadgets. Thanks for tuning in. I want to make another video on this RZR. This is the Pro R. Now in the last video, I was out on the trail with this thing and I mentioned turbo a couple times. This is the Pro R turbo. Now this one is the Pro R4. This is the turbo. It's got 225 horsepower. And I've since edited that out of the video because I was wrong. Now on this channel, I try my best to just come across with the most organic content that I possibly can. So I try to put myself in the position of a viewer. What would you guys do if the camera was in your hands? And just keep it kind of relatable like that. But there is also an onus and a responsibility for me to represent these products appropriately, not only for the people watching, but for the brands that support the channel. So I'm going to try to do better at my own quality control of my videos and kind of vet that stuff out. Now, I do not anticipate getting very scripted because I don't like watching scripted content. I like just feeling like I'm hanging out with somebody on YouTube. That's how I watch it. And I'm assuming a lot of you guys do as well. So with that, I want to get into this RZR kind of one more time. My time is pretty much running out with it. Now, before I give this back, I do want to talk about some things that I had to do with this mechanically. First and foremost, a belt. So when I actually got this unit, it was misfiring. So as I started looking at the RZR, I started thinking to myself, like, if it's misfiring, it's probably plugs. That's just my first thought process. And how would I go about changing out plugs on a RZR? So this video is really geared more towards people who are here for the motorcycle content or the truck, which is parked outside, who maybe have never looked at a RZR and are interested on how these things are put together, how you might maintain them. So let's take a look. As I had this machine throwing engine codes, I didn't have to really look all that far to figure out what it was doing. If I come in here to the main vehicle settings, diagnostics, there are no codes now, so it's not showing me what it was previously, but it tells you exactly what's going on. With everything being so accessible here, I thought, hey, it's probably not that hard. So I reached out to Polaris and I said, it might be plugs. They said, we'll get back to you. We'll let you know. And while I was waiting for them to get back to me, I just started getting interested in how hard is it to work on these things. So that's the video that I want to share with you guys today. Is what I found was with the right Torx bit, that it's actually really quite easy to get in here to take a look at what is going on. Just remove a couple of these Torx. Doing it one-handed is always a treat. Those of you who are not YouTubers don't have to deal with that. So I started looking at this and I'm like, man, how easy to maintain all of your plugs, obviously it's four-cylinder, sitting right up here. But if you just kind of take a step back and look at this engine bay, it's like everything is right here. So here you've got the air box. It's being fed from up here, taking in your air intake. Coolant, again, plugs sitting up top here. A heat shield, super accessible. Got your exhaust. Just really easy to get in here and get access. Now, once that's open, even coming off to either side here, you can see you've just got nothing but wide open space. And maintaining these things just seems to be rather an easy thing to do. So you've got a dipstick sitting here, oil filter sitting right behind here, really quite accessible. Now I'm not going to go as far as pulling off the wheels for looking at brake serviceability and all that stuff, but I can say that just looking at it, looks very basic, typical brake caliper setup. Accessing it would not be too much of a pain, and I assume that that's a pretty straightforward process. If you look off to the back side here, again, kind of standard caliper type stuff. It is pretty neat that they have this scraper here for mud. So if you have mud collecting on the inside of the tire, that you're not getting that thump, 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 unbalanced tire vibe. So cool that they've got a little mud scraper there. CV shafts, pretty accessible as well. I'd imagine those are pretty easy to service. So it looks like on the front, the only thing you're going to have up here is there's a brake fluid reservoir up here, and you've got the radiator tucked up back in here. But again, The coolant reservoir is in the rear, so that's going to be where you would service coolant. So really not a whole lot going on up front. I mean, obviously, being an off-road focused vehicle, maintenance is going to be something you're just naturally going to have to deal with. These things are really taking some abuse. They're designed to take abuse, but when you start going off-road, you're bound to break something. So very nice to see this stuff very accessible. So when I reached out to Polaris and I said, hey, I can do these plugs. They're sitting right here. Those Misfire Codes, I'm assuming, are plug related. Polaris was plenty accommodating. They're like, of course, no, we'll take care of the maintenance. You don't have to do any maintenance. As they were looking into what the issue might be, I did as one does. I took to the forums, and I saw that apparently Misfire Codes can be created because of belt slipping. So I decided to try the belt because it seemed like the most reasonable potential explanation. Now, my other thought process was, because I can already see comments, is like, well, if it's a press vehicle, why in the world would you buy a belt for a press vehicle? The thought behind that was, yeah, I don't have to do that. Of course, Polaris would do that. But if I'm going to be taking this thing out in the middle of nowhere, it would be good to have an extra belt anyways, because a lot of times I'm out there by myself, and if you throw a belt, you're just basically stranded. So it was basically the same question of like, well, why would you carry a spare tire, in my opinion? And just made sense. So I think that way, and I'm okay with that. I can see why others may not. So you can see there, just pulled the seats out. Getting to this belt, again, talking about maintenance, could not be any easier. Pop this off. So here you can see, this is the air box. That was one of the first things that I checked. Pull that off, air filter there, easy enough to change. Again, all of this stuff, very easy to get to. And now we'll pop down here. A couple more thumb screws. Wait. This is going to be where the belt is. That's the one issue, is there's one that's kind of down there. It's a little bit difficult to get to. So I would carry a socket set and maybe a couple open-end wrenches. Really, I don't think there's a whole lot of toolkit that I would feel the need to carry. Maybe a jack, probably a jack. And that would go with a spare tire that I would absolutely carry. I really like to be self-sufficient when it comes to this kind of stuff. Just a handful of 10 millimeters, and then there's some thumb screws here. We'll disconnect the air hose clamp. One-handed, but very easy to do. Two hands. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. Definitely a two-handed operation to pull that cover off. But once you pull that cover off, it's actually a really quite simple process. You just take the included little wrench here, thread it in right here, and then it relieves tension off the belt. You literally just pull it out and put the new one on. It takes like 2 seconds. No doubt the hardest part of doing that is pulling out those 10 millimeter bolts and getting the little thumb screws turned, and then just finagling that plastic cover out of your way. And then you have access there. So pretty much all of the maintenance that has to be done here is isolated right to the rear end. As I'm learning a lot about these side-by-sides, again, I had the General for a little while. I would like to get a look at the new Expedition to see how they're using space. It looks like there's a lot more storage opportunity within the Expedition, but the Expedition's not going to have the absolutely absurd Fox live valve long travel suspension. So the RZR is absolutely the machine that you'd want to be doing a bunch of heavy off-road type stuff with. But again, the selection of a RZR is coming at the expense of some storage. This machine has 595 miles on it. So the fact that it needed a new belt at probably, I don't know, maybe I did 550-ish miles when I replaced it. It doesn't seem all that crazy to me, especially with the fact that these demo fleets or press fleets, these things get thrashed. They're supposed to get thrashed. That's the whole point. I'm overly impressed with what the RZR has in terms of engineering built into it. One of the things I mentioned was storage is limited, but there is storage compartments up here. There's another one here. You do have some storage, maybe not as much as you're going to get out of the General or the Expedition, which I still have not seen. Aside from that, I just wanted to make this video to really show people like what these things are all about, mechanically speaking. Ultimately, it seems very well put together, and I'm sure, like everything, there will be a comment down below of people who have broke something somewhere along the lines. But just looking at it as a whole, I'm pretty impressed with how well this thing is constructed. Again, I wanted to make one video just kind of going over the machine mechanically, see what it's all about, show you guys maybe some of the less so on the electronic side, but more on the actual hardware and accessing serviceable components, and show you guys how these things are constructed, because I find this stuff to be very interesting, and I'm sure somebody else out there in the world of YouTube viewers might also find it somewhat interesting as well. So with that being said, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, please hit that subscribe button down below, because of course without you guys, these kinds of things don't show up in my garage, and I am very grateful for all of the support that you guys provide this channel, and that indirect support of me as well, or direct support. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, please hit that subscribe button down below. Remember, likes go a long way to help support the channel. I will see you guys next time. Time to grab a trailer and get this thing back to Polaris. It's a sad day. I love this stuff.